The Prime Minister inaugurating India's biggest helicopter factory, but pretty much making a speech crafted for the upcoming Karnataka election. The Prime Minister has adapted this event once again for this upcoming election in Karnataka. He's reached out and connected Modi style with the public in Karnataka for the upcoming election. He not only spoke about job creation and HAL's brand new factory, but also took potshots at Rahul Gandhi over Rafale politics, and then extended into the many welfare schemes and budget announcements that will impact Karnataka. But the big takeaway from the first half of the Prime Minister's speech is the Prime Minister's first big attack on Rahul Gandhi over his Rafale politics of 2019. The Prime Minister spent several minutes attacking the Congress and Rahul Gandhi, saying that they used HAL's good name for their dirty politics, and this new factory in Tumakuru near Bengaluru is a slap in the face of all those who tried to tarnish HAL's good name for their personal politics and in order to tarnish Prime Minister Modi's image as well. Take a listen to what the Prime Minister has said. Remember, Rahul Gandhi in 2019 had alleged that Prime Minister Modi had neglected HAL, sidelined HAL in order to award the fruits of the Rafale deal to private sector companies, which has turned out to be completely incorrect and false. Take a look at what the Prime Minister has just said.
यही HAL है जिसे बहाना बनाकर हमारी सरकार पर तरह तरह के झूठे आरोप लगाए गए। यही HAL है जिसका नाम लेकर लोगों को भड़काने की साजिश रची गई, लोगों को उकसाया गया, पार्लियामेंट के घंटे से घंटे तबाह कर दिए। लेकिन मेरे प्यारे भाइयों बहनों, झूठ कितना ही बड़ा क्यों न हो, कितनी ही बार बोला जाता हो, कितने ही बड़े लोगों से बोला जाता हो, लेकिन एक न एक दिन वो सच के सामने हारता ही है।
Let's go across to India Today's Gaurav Sawant joining me live. Gaurav, Prime Minister taking an unusually direct swipe at Rahul Gandhi, over the politics that Rahul Gandhi and the Congress party had played to the hilt over HAL back during the 2019 campaign.
Shiv, you and I have covered the Rafale journey right from its inception to the aircraft now flying with the Indian Air Force and all the delays, all the air pockets that the deal hit. Now, when it came to HAL, there was an issue in terms of why HAL could not manufacture, who would take guarantees for the HAL manufactured Rafale aircraft, and that is why the deal got stuck. Whereas politics on that subject, and Rahul Gandhi or the Congress party targeted the Narendra Modi government, saying that they didn't give the contract to HAL but gave it to private sector instead to benefit, as Rahul Gandhi continues to say in another context, hum do hamare do, that only select industries are being benefited, or industrial houses or corporate houses are being benefited. That's the allegation. The Prime Minister says those were lies, half-truths, absolute lies and rumors. Look at HAL today. HAL is manufacturing, HAL is able to deliver this in context, of course, of the light utility helicopter.
Right.
And this huge base that has come up in Tumakuru, 615 acres for the manufacture of the LUH and other heptas subsequently.
Stay with me, Gaurav. Shehzad Poonawala of the BJP also with me. Shehzad, very direct attack by the Prime Minister. It doesn't take Rahul Gandhi's name, but, pretty clear who he's talking about when he says that those who tried to use and misuse HAL's name, today they've gotten a slap in their face.
Absolutely, and as Gaurav was rightly pointing out, it was actually the failure on the part of the UPA government at that time, which was known for its indecision, that they couldn't resolve the issues that were there between HAL and Dassault, and therefore, because of their inefficiency, incapacity, HAL had to suffer. Look at the fact, like Gaurav rightly mentioned, today HAL is manufacturing and producing. The capacity to produce Tejas has increased. 20,000 crores, if I remember correctly, has been allocated to enhance its production capacity for the LCAs. So this has been done under the Modi government, and all the allegations that were made for the Rafales, all of them were tested at the annual of a court, and the court of law held that there was no corruption, but yet the Congress party continued to peddle lies. In fact, they said that the Supreme Court said Chaukidar Chor hai in context of the Rafale verdict. Rahul Gandhi had to apologize, and just like that, the lies about HAL was also peddled by Rahul Gandhi, and all those lies have been exposed time after time by the highest courts of the land. The fact of the that, Rajniti above Rashtra-niti has been the foremost policy of the Congress party, and therefore, whether it's the surgical strike, the Balakot airstrike, the procurement of Rafales, procurements of various other equipment for our military, even purchased for 9 years, the CDS wasn't put in place, the National War Memorial wasn't commissioned or done, OROP was left hanging. This is the legacy that the UPA gave us during the tenure, and this is how they treated the armed forces of this country and how they treated the government enterprises of this country. Today that has completely changed, and HAL is proudly managing the Tejas aircraft.
And just to also share with our viewers, Shehzad and Gaurav, and we're trying to get a reaction in from the Congress also, in 2019, at the peak of this entire Rafale HAL politics that Rahul Gandhi was leading as part of the 2019 campaign, at the Aero India show in February 2019, I had put a direct question to the HAL chairman of the time saying, does he share the, perception or the allegation, or to comment on what Rahul Gandhi was alleging, that HAL had been neglected, HAL had been sidelined and deprived of, this hugely lucrative deal, and he said it was inaccurate and he did not share that perception. So whichever way you look at it, what Rahul Gandhi had alleged at that time vis-a-vis HAL was most definitely false. It betrayed a complete lack of understanding of the structure of that particular deal as well. But that's separate. Those are facts that Gaurav and I had brought out at that time as well. But this time, it is about the politics of it. And also, Gaurav, to bring you in back on this, the politics that were played at that time, must have had a cascading, damaging effect. Already India's defense procurement, defense development procedures are extremely slow, but the vicious and ill-informed politics that was played over HAL at that time, must have had some kind of an impact.
It indeed did, and it does, unfortunately. Shiv, you're absolutely right. India...
Gaurav, apologies for interrupting you. Coming back to you in just a moment. Nasir Hussain of the Congress Party, Member of Parliament, is with us. Nasir ji, thank you for speaking to India Today. Your reaction, sir, to the Prime Minister taking a pretty direct pot shot at the Congress Party and Rahul Gandhi over, HAL politics that were played, he says, in 2019.
See, I think now because of the Adani scam, because of the SBI LIC investment scam that has happened in the country, they are now forced to speak about so many things of the past. And while coming to Rafale, I would like to again reiterate the Congress stand, and I would again like to remind the viewers of your channel that Rafale was an issue which was not investigated. Rafale is an issue which is still not investigated. Rafale is an issue where the country that has given more money to buy the jets has not investigated the issue or has not inquired into the issue, but the country which got more money in a deal are investigating that issue. This is something which is laughable. Even now, the country which got more money while selling their product is investigating the issue. But the country which has given more money is not investigating the issue. See, this is something which this government has followed.
Okay.
We investigated the issue, 2G scam, and now their own CBI court has come out very clear on the scam that the opposition at that time, that is BJP, made sort of a non-issue. But now, whether it is the Adani scam or the Rafale, this government doesn't want to inquire into it. Even now, for the Adani scam, we are very clear that there should be a JPC and the JPC should inquire into it.
Okay. Thank you, Nasser Hussain, for speaking to India Today. The Congress sticking to its guns as far as the so-called Rafale scam is concerned. Well, the occasion where this political attack happened was a landmark milestone for Indian aviation today. A new helicopter facility, 615 acres large, inaugurated by the Prime Minister for Hindustan Aeronautics Limited in Tumakuru near Bengaluru. It is India's largest helicopter manufacturing facility and will initially produce light utility helicopters. The factory will be augmented to produce other helicopters such as light combat helicopters Prachand and the future Indian multi-role helicopters which will replace the workhorse Mi-17s. It will also be used for maintenance, repair and overhaul of the entire gamut of military helicopters currently serving with the Indian Armed Forces. This makes it one of Asia's biggest ever helicopter facilities. It will undoubtedly boost aerospace manufacturing and the ecosystem in Karnataka, producing thousands of jobs.
लाइट यूटिलिटी हेलीकॉप्टर की मैन्युफैक्चरिंग फैसिलिटी का उद्घाटन किया गया है। यह निश्चित ही साथियों, यह निश्चित ही रक्षा क्षेत्र के साथ साथ संपूर्ण राष्ट्र के लिए बड़े ही गौरव का विषय है। स्वयं प्रधानमंत्री जी के कर कमलों द्वारा इस फैसिलिटी का शिलान्यास और आपके ही कर कमलों के द्वारा इसका उद्घाटन देश में डिफेंस मैन्युफैक्चरिंग के प्रति आपके कमिटमेंट का एक बहुत बड़ा उदाहरण है। यह उद्घाटन रक्षा क्षेत्र की आत्मनिर्भरता की यात्रा में एक माइलस्टोन है। इस ऐतिहासिक अवसर पर मैं हिंदुस्तान एरोनॉटिक्स लिमिटेड, इस प्रोजेक्ट से जुड़े सभी लोगों और संगठन समेत समस्त राष्ट्र को अपनी ओर से हार्दिक बधाई देता हूं।
Now the factory is formally on. The first light utility helicopter which you see the Prime Minister and the Defence Minister standing next to will be handed over to the Army at the Aero India trade show which kicks off in Bengaluru at the end of this week. The LUH is required in large numbers, nearly 200, and those will all be built at this new facility. The Prachand light combat helicopter will also be manufactured at this same factory. Now this particular factory has a maximum annual capacity of between 30 to 90 light utility helicopters. The overall military requirement in India for light utility helicopters is 400. Now the requirement for light utility helicopters manufactured by HAL is 187. But the current orders for the LUH is only 12, a measly 12 light utility helicopters, which means that in this year alone, the order shortfall for light utility helicopters is anywhere between 18 to 78 helicopters, depending on which frame of reference you're using. That makes the overall shortfall of light utility helicopters 175, and there is reason to believe that the government is going to accelerate the orders on this front very, very soon. But there are big questions to ask, and we will ask those here on India Today. Number one, when will this factory that's been inaugurated by the Prime Minister get enough orders to justify its large size and scale? Number two, why haven't India's armed forces ordered the light utility helicopter and light combat helicopter in large enough numbers, respectable numbers? What is this 15 and 12 helicopters? It's nothing. Will this facility make India fully self-reliant in military helicopters? That's a tall order, but this facility will play a part. When will India have its own helicopter engine? We're building helicopters, but the engine is from France. When will we have our own helicopter engine? Can current import efforts of helicopters be scrapped in the foreseeable future, thanks to what is going to come out of this particular factory? So it's an interesting dilemma for the Indian Armed Forces, but a very promising start as far as Atmanirbhar Bharat in military helicopters is concerned. Now the endless search for replacement helicopters, the LUH that we're talking about that's going to be made here, is basically to replace hundreds of Cheetah and Chetak vintage helicopters that are even now in service with our armed forces. The Indian Army has been trying to replace these helicopters for nearly 2 decades now. Experts have opined repeatedly that it is time to retire the Chetak and the Cheetah because they are simply of an older generation. But to this day, the quest remains unfulfilled. Here's the reality check.
The most numerous helicopters in the Indian Army, the light utility Cheetah and Chetaks, purchased decades ago from France and then built in India by HAL. These helicopters have served as the backbone of the aerial logistics fleet. But would you believe it if we told you that the Indian Army has been looking to replace these for nearly 2 decades? You heard that right, nearly 2 decades. It was in the early 2000s that the Army began planning for a procurement that would replace these aging helicopters. After considering a variety of helicopters in the first decade of the new millennium, the Army formally floated a tender in 2007. The Indian Army zeroed in on 2 types. The French Eurocopter AS-550 Fennec and the Russian Kamau Ka-2260. But after nearly 5 years of trials, in 2012, the contest was scrapped and rebooted amidst a cloud of controversy. Nearly a decade down the drain. The contest was then restarted with the hope of a decision. A full 3 years later, amazingly, the contest was scrapped again. Once more in the cloud of controversy. But this time, the Army pushed for a decision and the Indian government bit the bullet. In 2015, the Russian Ka-2260 was chosen for a Make in India program. The plan was for 200 helicopters to be jointly built by Russia and India's Hindustan Aeronautics. Most of them at a facility near Bengaluru. But 6 agonizing years later, not only has the production not started, the final work share agreement itself has not been signed. As always, it's the Army that's paying the price. Light helicopters flown by Army aviation pilots are crucial for India's efforts to maintain a force of nearly 3,000 soldiers in the Himalayan heights. They are deployed on posts strung along Saltoro Ridge, which at over 20,000 feet is the world's highest battlefield manned by India since 1984. The Army's fleet of 1970s vintage Cheetah helicopter supplies its troops with ammunition, rations and fuel for warmth. The Army's struggle to replace them continues without end. A bulk of the Army's fleet of 120 Cheetahs has long crossed their structural unity of 4,500 hours of flight time and a 1,750-hour engine life. Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, which has licensed produced the Cheetah and the Chetak from France since the late 1970s, say it is becoming difficult to service the aging machines because of a lack of spares. The Army says it has no option but to rely on these vintage machines because it has been unable to buy replacements in time. But could the answer to the Army's woes be right here in the country?
Well, as the Prime Minister inaugurated Asia's biggest chopper factory in Tumakuru today, it was back in 2019 when India Today got you this first-hand experience of what it's like to be in the cockpit of a Prachand, India's first indigenously built light combat helicopter that will also be built at the factory that's just been inaugurated by the Prime Minister. The first time ever, that's me in the cockpit, a journalist flying the Prachand for the first time. Take a look. Say namaste to the light combat helicopter. Developed and test flown for nearly a decade by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, the light combat helicopter is not just made in India, but custom built for India's unique battlefield conditions, from the deserts of Rajasthan to the super high altitudes of Ladakh. But what better way to get acquainted with the light combat helicopter than by taking a spin in one? I was invited by HAL's test team to strap into this helicopter and get a never-before taste of what this Swadeshi combat chopper is truly all about. India Today has been invited to be the first journalist team to fly in and experience the light combat helicopter developed and tested by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. This is India's first attack helicopters. It has missiles, it has rockets, it has guns, and we happen to be the first ever media crew who's get a taste of the light combat helicopter. For a flight in the LCH, I have to get into the full pilot kit, from overalls to flying boots. Joined by HAL test pilot Wing Commander Subhash John, we walk out onto the airfield to the waiting helicopter, soaking in the unforgiving Bengaluru sun. And it is here that I receive a crucial part of the flying experience I'm about to have. A combat flying helmet equipped with a helmet-mounted sight. An electro-optical system used by pilots to point various weapons at their targets. But more on that in just a bit. First, the inside of the light combat helicopter itself. Constructed with a sleek tandem cockpit rather than the usual side-by-side seats on other helicopter types, the LCH from the outside sports a stealthy front profile that also gives adversaries a smaller, harder target to latch onto. Wing Commander Subhash and I belt up, and then the engines come on. The rumble of the twin Shakti turboshaft engines come to life, rapidly turning the rotors into a steady chop. The helicopter is now ready to taxi out. With all checks done and cleared by air traffic control, the LCH gently lifts off. In airspace over Bengaluru, the light combat helicopter is put through a series of maneuvers, demonstrating its agility in the air and carefully customized flying qualities. The effortless handling that Wing Commander Subhash demonstrates at low altitude validates the years of tough flight testing that has gone into refining the LCH into the flying machine it is today. Returning to the tarmac after a 25-minute flight, I've just had the most personal possible tryst with an aircraft that stands on the threshold of Indian military service. And finally, viewer, how contaminated, how morally rotten, how dishonorable and desperate must an Indian be to praise Parvez Musharraf? Well, thankfully there aren't many, but there are two of note who've used their high-profile energies to sing eulogies for the departed Pakistani dictator. The illustrious and influential Shashi Tharoor, who has labelled Musharraf a force for peace, and Mehbooba Mufti, who praises Musharraf as the only general who wanted a solution to the Kashmir issue. I believe condolences are always a good thing. Both Tharoor and Mufti are also entitled to their opinions. But what all of us should have a problem with is the fact that their claims are both laughably false as well as dangerous. And I'll tell you why. Using the cloud of emotion following a public figure's death to showboat your broad-mindedness and munificence is fine. But it stops being fine when your words fly completely in the face of facts acts that Indian citizens have literally died for to persuade the world about Pakistan's ways. Force for peace, says Tharoor. Well, under Musharraf, as Pakistan's all-powerful military dictator, here are the wonderfully forceful peace gestures that Musharraf sent us. The Parliament attack in December 2001, the attack on the Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly in October 2001, the Mumbai train bombings in July 2006, the attack on the Indian Institute of Science in Bengaluru in December 2005, the Delhi bombings in October 2005, the UP attack in July 2005, the Udhampur attack in August 2015, the Pune bomb blast in August 2012. And he was dictator till barely months before the 26/11 attacks in Mumbai, presiding over the establishment that funded and trained Ajmal Amir Kasab and his band of terrorists. Musharraf was dictator when the 9/11 attacks took place, remember. Musharraf's ISI had full control over the Haqqani network and the Taliban that were responsible for over 500 deaths of US soldiers between 2001 and 2007. In 2006, Musharraf as dictator facilitated the secretive transfer of Osama bin Laden and his family from Afghanistan and Saudi Arabia into Pakistan. It was very likely Musharraf's idea that Osama be concealed in plain sight at a compound very close to the Pakistan Military Academy in Abbottabad, not some remote safe house which would look suspicious. It was Musharraf's total hubris that compelled him to order the infiltrations that triggered the Kargil conflict with India in 1999. It was his complete lack of honor that over 100 Pakistani soldiers who made the supreme sacrifice for their country were abandoned on Indian soil by their army chief, Musharraf, who was too busy ensuring plausible deniability to care about the families of those men. You tell me, viewer, does any of this sound like a man who was a force for peace, or someone who was looking for a genuine solution? Or was Musharraf plainly a narcissistic warmonger who couldn't even get that right? So to the Tharoors and Mehboobas of this country, go ahead and express your condolences all you want. That's the Indian way. But please don't lie about India's enemies, because that's precisely what you've done. Keep watching India Today. That's a wrap on 5 Live. Thanks so much for watching.